1943. It is a place where the earth itself seems hostile to machinery. The air is not just air. It is a physical weight, a suspension of water vapor, fungal spores and heat that presses against your lungs. It is 7:42 in the morning on August 17th, and the temperature at Doadura Airfield is already climbing past 80 degrees. Technical Sergeant James McKenna is a man who knows the weight of this air. He knows what it does to aluminum skin and hydraulic seals. He knows how it corrodes electrical contacts and makes canvas rot. But right now, crouching under the left wing of a massive P-38 Lightning, McKenna isn't thinking about the humidity. He's thinking about death. He's watching his pilot, Lieutenant Robert Hayes, 23 years old, a farm kid from Iowa who looks like he should be driving a tractor or sitting in a college lecture hall, not strapping himself into a 7-ton killing machine. Hayes has flown 6 combat missions. He has 0 kills. And today, the intelligence reports say the Japanese have sent 18 Mitsubishi A6M Zeros, the legendary fighters of the Imperial Navy, to intercept the morning patrol. Hayes is flying straight into them. McKenna has been maintaining P-38s for 8 months. He knows the aircraft inside and out. He knows the rhythm of its twin engines. He knows the smell of its cockpit. He knows it is a masterpiece of American engineering, a twin-boom, twin-engine monster that is fast, heavily armed, and terrifying in a straight line. But McKenna also knows the secret that isn't in the recruiting posters. He knows the P-38 has a fatal problem, a flaw, a ghost in the machine that is killing American pilots every single day. It cannot turn with a 0. The difference in turn radius between the American heavy fighter and the Japanese lightweight fighter is not just a statistic. It is a death sentence. The 0 can execute a full horizontal turn in half the time a P-38 needs. In a dogfight, that difference means the enemy is on your tail before you have even finished your maneuver. McKenna watches Hayes climb into the cockpit. He sees the stiffness in the kid's shoulders. He sees the fear. Hayes knows the doctrine. Everyone knows the doctrine. Never turn with a 0. Use speed. Use altitude. Dive in. Shoot. Climb out. Hit and run. It sounds simple in a briefing room. It sounds logical in a manual. But McKenna knows that up there, at 15,000 feet, logic often falls apart. He has seen Hayes try the doctrine 5 times. It hasn't worked. The Zeros are too smart. They bait the Americans. They lure them in, wait for the commitment, and then cut inside the turning radius. The 5th Air Force has lost 37 P-38s in the past 6 weeks. McKenna has counted them. He has packed the personal effects of the men who flew them. He is tired of sending good men, kids really, into the sky in machines that he knows are fighting with one hand tied behind their back. The training manual says the problem is pilot error. The instructors say the pilots aren't following doctrine. The officers say everything is within factory specifications. But James McKenna knows better. Crouched in the shadow of the wing, wiping grease from his hands, he knows the problem isn't the pilot. It isn't the tactics. It is the control cables. And he knows that what he did last night, in the dark, with a piece of stolen wire, might save Hayes' life, or it might kill him. And if it kills him, McKenna knows he will never forgive himself. To understand what happened on that August morning, you have to understand the machine. The Lockheed P-38 Lightning was a radical departure from traditional fighter design. It didn't look like anything else in the sky. It had a central gondola for the pilot and guns, flanked by 2 long booms that housed the engines and the turbo superchargers. It was fast. It could climb like a rocket. At high altitude, it was an absolute beast. But a fighter plane is only as good as its connection to the pilot. The interface between human intention and mechanical action is the control system. In the P-38, the ailerons, the hinged surfaces on the wings that control the roll of the aircraft, were connected to the pilot's control stick by a complex system of steel cables. These cables ran from the cockpit, out through the wings, back through the long twin booms to the tail section, and then forward again through a series of pulleys to the control surfaces. It was a long run. Lots of wire. Lots of pulleys. And like any physical system, it had tolerance. It had slack. McKenna had found it months ago. When the aircraft sat on the ground, if you moved the stick, the ailerons moved. But they didn't move instantly. There was a gap, a tiny, perceptible delay. The cable system had slack, maybe 3/8 of an inch at full deflection. 3/8 of an inch. It sounds like nothing. You can span it with your thumb and forefinger. In a car, steering play like that is annoying. In a bomber, it's negligible. But in a fighter plane engaged in a life-or-death struggle at 300 miles per hour, 3/8 of an inch is an eternity. That tiny bit of slack created a delay between stick movement and aileron response. When a pilot shoved the stick left to roll, the first fraction of the movement did nothing. It just took up the slack. Only after the cable went taut did the aileron actually bite into the air. At high speeds, the aerodynamic pressure on the wings masked the problem. But at low speeds, the kind of speeds you hit when you're turning hard, bleeding energy, trying to get your nose around on a Japanese fighter, that delay was catastrophic. That fraction of a second was the difference between rolling inside a zero's turn and getting shot down. It was the difference between a snap roll and a sluggish, wallowing drift. McKenna had mentioned this to the engineering officer 2 months ago. He had stood there, wiping his hands on a rag, and explained that the stick felt mushy. He explained that the cables didn't sing, right, when you plucked them during tension checks. The officer had looked at the charts. He had looked at the Lockheed manual. The cable tension is within specifications, the officer had said. Factory tolerances allow for that slack. Changing it would void the aircraft warranty. Besides, Sergeant, no field mechanic has authorization to modify flight control systems. That requires engineering approval from Lockheed, and Lockheed is 7,000 miles away in California. Regulations. The Army Air Force runs on them. They exist to keep airplanes safe. They exist to ensure standardization. But regulations don't fly combat missions. Regulations don't have a zero on their 6 o'clock. So McKenna went back to the line. He went back to maintaining aircraft that he knew were flawed. And he went back to watching men die. The first pilot McKenna lost to this flaw was Lieutenant David Chen, July 9th, 1943. Chen had been in theater for only 3 weeks. He was a good kid, sharp, eager. McKenna had worked on his aircraft every morning. They had a routine. While McKenna checked the oil and the hydraulics, they talked about home. Chen was from Sacramento. McKenna was from Long Beach. They were 2 California boys sweating it out in the jungle. They talked about cars. They talked about the Pacific Coast Highway. They talked about what they would drive when the war was over. Chen took off at 06:15 on a fighter sweep. He came back 2 hours later with 3 bullet holes in his left boom and a face the color of ash. He told McKenna about the zero. He said he had tried to roll out and dive away, just like the manual said. But the airplane felt slow. He said it felt like there was a delay, like he was moving through mud. He moved the stick, and for a heartbeat, nothing happened. That heartbeat was long enough for the zero to get the lead right. The zero almost got me, Chen had whispered, looking at the bullet holes. Only thing that saved me was my wingman. McKenna looked at the holes. They were in a tight group. Perfect deflection shooting. The Japanese pilot had anticipated exactly where Chen's airplane would be. That shouldn't have been possible if Chen had rolled hard and dove immediately. The math didn't add up unless the airplane had hesitated. Chen didn't fly that plane again. It went to the depot for repairs. 3 weeks later, flying a different P-38 over Rabaul, Chen was killed. The after-action report told the same story. Caught in a turning fight. Couldn't roll out fast enough. Shot down in flames. McKenna packed Chen's belongings. The letters from Sacramento. The photos of his car. He sent them home to a mother who would never know that her son died because of 3/8 of an inch of steel wire slack. The second pilot was Captain William Morrison. Morrison wasn't a rookie. He was a flight leader, experienced. 11 confirmed kills. He knew the P-38's limitations. He flew smart. He preached the doctrine. On August 3rd, Morrison's flight intercepted 8 zeros at 12,000 feet over Oro Bay. Morrison got 1 zero on the first pass. He came around for another run. 2 zeros reversed on him. McKenna heard the radio traffic afterward. The recording was grainy, filled with static, but the desperation was clear. Morrison tried to roll inverted and split S away, the classic escape maneuver. He called out that his controls felt mushy. Mushy. That word again. The Zeros stayed with him through the maneuver. They shot him down at 4,000 feet. Morrison's wingman said it looked like Morrison was fighting the controls, like the airplane simply refused to snap around. Morrison died in the crash. Morrison's crew chief was a friend of McKenna's, a guy named Rodriguez from Texas. Rodriguez was inconsolable. He was convinced he had missed something. He checked the wreckage. He checked the engine settings, the control surface rigging, the cable tensions. Everything was within spec. "There's nothing wrong with the airplane," the report said. "Pilot error." Rodriguez didn't believe it. Neither did McKenna. By mid-August, McKenna had watched 17 pilots die. Some he knew well. Most he'd only met briefly while doing pre-flight checks. But he had signed off on all their maintenance logs. He had watched them taxi out. He started paying attention to the sound the cables made when he tensioned them during maintenance. There was a specific tone, a sort of low, flat twang, when you plucked them. Loose cables sounded different than tight cables. McKenna could hear the difference. Every P-38 on the line had cables that sounded slightly loose. Within spec, yes, but loose. The problem wasn't that American pilots didn't know what to do. They knew. Every briefing emphasized it. Every training flight drilled it. Never turn with a zero. The problem was that combat doesn't follow a script. The problem was that when the enemy breaks the rules, you have to break them too. And the P-38 wasn't built to break rules. It is the evening of August 16th. Lieutenant Robert Hayes walks into the maintenance area. He finds McKenna working on his assigned P-38. Hayes has been in New Guinea for 2 months. He has flown 6 missions. He has 0 kills. He is a good pilot. He follows the rules. And the rules keep putting him in positions where he can't get a shot. On his 3rd mission, Hayes dove on a 0 from altitude. He built up speed to 400 miles per hour. He came in from the sun. He got the 0 in his gun sight. He started to pull lead for deflection. The 0 snap-rolled left and dove. Hayes tried to follow. His P-38 rolled into the turn, but it felt heavy, lethargic. By the time his aircraft pointed where he wanted it, the 0 was gone. 4th mission. Worse. Hayes and his wingman jumped 2 zeros. Hayes missed his first burst. The 0 reversed hard right. Hayes rolled to follow. His wingman called out 2 more zeros coming in from above. Hayes tried to roll back level and dive away. The airplane responded, but slowly. Just slowly enough that one of the diving zeros got a 3-second burst into Hayes' right boom. 20mm cannon shells. They didn't penetrate the critical systems, but they scared Hayes badly enough that he broke off the engagement and ran for home with his engine smoking. 5th mission. Hayes watched his wingman die. Lieutenant Thomas Parker, 21 years old, Boston. They'd gone through training together. Parker got separated. 2 zeros got on his tail. Parker tried everything. Rolled hard, reversed, tried to scissor. The 0 stayed with him through every maneuver. Hayes heard Parker on the radio. He heard the panic. He heard Parker scream that the plane wouldn't turn fast enough. Then he heard the gunfire. Then nothing. Hayes didn't sleep that night. Parker's bed stayed empty. His personal effects got packed up. The maintenance log for Parker's plane noted no mechanical issues. Official cause: pilot error during defensive maneuvering. McKenna had worked on Parker's aircraft the morning he died. Everything was perfect. The airplane was fine. But Parker was dead anyway. So now, on the night of August 16th, Hayes stands next to McKenna. The pilot looks at the mechanic. "Is there anything you can do?" Hayes asks. His voice is quiet. "Anything at all to make it roll faster?" McKenna looks at him. He sees the sweat on Hayes' forehead. He sees the shaking hands. He sees a kid who knows he's going to die tomorrow. "I don't care if it's regulation or not," Hayes says. "I just want a chance." McKenna looks at the P-38. He looks at the shadows in the hangar. He knows the regulations. He knows the engineering officer is strictly by the book. He knows that unauthorized modification of a flight control system is a court-martial offense. It could mean a dishonorable discharge. It could mean prison. But then he looks at Hayes, and he remembers Chen. He remembers Morrison. He remembers Parker. "Come back in the morning, Lieutenant," McKenna says. "I'll see what I can do." McKenna works alone. It is 2300 hours, 11 p.m. The maintenance hangar is quiet. Most of the crew has gone to sleep. The only sounds are the distant rumble of generators and the buzz of insects swarming the overhead lights. The air smells of engine oil and tropical dampness. McKenna pulls the inspection panel off the left boom of Hayes' P-38. The metal is still warm from the day's sun. Inside, the aileron control cable runs through a series of pulleys toward the tail section. McKenna grabs the cable with both hands and pulls. He feels it. The slack. The play. It's loose. It's wrong. He knows it's wrong in his gut. He reaches into his tool bag. For 2 weeks, he has been carrying a piece of wire. It's not standard aviation wire. It's a 6-inch piece of high-tensile piano wire, scavenged from the rudder trim system of P-38 that ground-looped and was scrapped. It's stiff, springy steel. He sits on the hangar floor. He takes a pair of pliers. He begins to bend the wire. The steel fights him. It is strong. He bends it once. Twice. He is shaping it into a Z, a simple, zigzag shape. His hands slip. The wire cuts his thumb. Blood wells up, dark and slick in the dim light. He wipes it on his coveralls and keeps working. It takes him 8 minutes to get the bend right. This Z-shaped wire is not a complex machine. It is a crude, improvised spring. The idea is simple. If he installs this wire in line with the cable, the spring tension of the Z-shape will pull the cable tight. It will add preload. Installing it is the hard part. The space inside the boom is tight, cramped. McKenna has to work with one hand while holding a flashlight with the other. The beam dances around. Shadows jump across the cables. He wedges his shoulder against the boom structure. The metal edge digs into his skin. He disconnects the cable at the pulley junction. His fingers fumble with the clevis pin. He drops it. Panic. If he loses that pin inside the boom, the aircraft is grounded. He freezes. He holds his breath. He spends 5 minutes feeling around in the dark, his heart pounding against his ribs. Finally, his fingertips brush against cold steel. He retrieves the pin. He inserts the piano wire tensioner between the cable end and the pulley. He reconnects the cable. The fit is tight now, very tight. He has to force the clevis pin through against the tension of the wire. When it finally seats, he locks it down. He wipes the sweat from his eyes. He reaches in and grabs the cable again. He pulls, no slack. The cable is singing now. He reaches into the cockpit and moves the stick. The control surface on the wing moves immediately, instantly. No hesitation. No mud. It is perfect. McKenna replaces the inspection panel. He cleans up his tools. He wipes the blood off the wire scraps in his hands. He walks out of the hangar at 01:15. The tropical night is humid and still. Somewhere in the distance, he hears aircraft engines, Japanese night raiders probably. The sound makes his stomach clench. He has just modified a flight control system without authorization. He has used a non-standard part. If this wire snaps during flight, Hayes will lose control. He will crash. And McKenna will be responsible for murder. But if it works, Hayes might live. McKenna goes to his bunk. He stares at the ceiling. He doesn't sleep. 8:06:30. McKenna is on the flight line. He watches the crew fuel and arm Hayes' aircraft. He watches Hayes walk out for his pre-flight briefing. He watches him climb into the cockpit. McKenna says nothing. He gives a thumbs up. Hayes nods. 07:42. Hayes takes off. McKenna stands there and watches the P-38 climb into the morning sky, joining formation with 16 other aircraft. They head northwest, disappearing into the glare. And now, the waiting begins. 8:14, over the Huon Gulf, 13,000 feet. Hayes is flying number 3 position in his flight. The morning sun is behind them, the perfect setup for a bounce. His element leader calls it out. Bogies at 10 o'clock low, 9 zeros. They roll in. Hayes picks a zero at the back of the formation. He pushes the nose down. The speed builds. 300, 350, 380. The wind noise screams over the canopy. The zero grows larger in his gun sight. He can see the red rising sun painted on the white fuselage. He can see the pilot's head turning. Hayes presses the trigger. Tracers reach out. Most miss. A few sparks fly off the Zero's wing. Not enough. The Japanese pilot reacts instantly. He snap rolls right and dives, initiating the high G turn that has saved so many of his comrades. Hayes reacts. He shoves the stick right to follow, and that is when he feels it. The airplane doesn't hesitate. There is no delay, no lag. The stick moves, and the 7-ton fighter snaps onto its side instantly. It is violent. It is immediate. Hayes has never felt his P-38 move like this. It feels like the airplane has been reading his mind. He rolls 90 degrees in what feels like half the normal time. He pulls back on the stick. The nose tracks perfectly. The zero is right there in his sight picture. He fires again. A 3-second burst. The rounds walk up the Zero's fuselage from tail to cockpit. The Zero's engine explodes. Pieces fly off. The aircraft rolls inverted and falls toward the jungle below, trailing the thick black smoke. Hayes' first kill, but there's no time to celebrate. Break left! Break left! Zero's coming down! His wingman screams the warning. Hayes looks up. 3 Zeros are diving on him. They have seen him shoot down their friend. They want blood. They are coming fast. Hayes shoves the throttles forward to war emergency power. The engines scream. But the Zeros are faster in the dive. They will be on him in seconds. His only option is to reverse and fight. Every instinct, every hour of training, screams at him to keep climbing, keep running. Don't turn. Don't turn. That is the doctrine. But doctrine means dying today. Hayes rolls hard left and pulls. The P-38 snaps around. The G-forces crush Hayes into his seat. The nose comes through the horizon. He sees the lead Zero. The Japanese pilot is turning to follow him, confident, expecting the American to drift wide. But the American doesn't drift. The P-38 cuts a tight, vicious arc through the sky. The Zero is caught off guard. He's in a bad position. Exposed. Hayes pulls lead. Fires. Hits the Zero in the left wing root. The wing folds. The Zero tumbles away. 2 kills in 30 seconds. The other 2 Zeros try to scissor with him. A classic maneuver of alternating turns designed to force an overshoot. Hayes stays with them. Left. Right. Left. Every time they reverse direction, his P-38 snaps into the turn instantly. No delay. No fighting the controls. The airplane does exactly what he wants, the moment he wants it. It is like flying a different aircraft. It is like someone has removed invisible weights from the wings. 1 Zero makes a mistake. He reverses too hard, bleeds too much speed. Hayes gets inside his turn. Close range. Maybe 200 feet. He fires. He can't miss. The Zero comes apart. Pieces of duralumin and glass fall past Hayes' canopy. He feels the P-38 shudder as debris hits his right boom. 3 kills. The 4th Zero runs. Hayes doesn't chase. He's low on fuel and ammunition. He climbs back to altitude, his heart hammering against his ribs, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He reforms with what is left of his flight. They head home. The entire engagement has lasted 7 minutes.
At 9:03, Hayes lands at Doadura. McKenna is waiting on the flight line. He watches the P-38 taxi in. He checks the control surfaces visually as the plane rolls past. They look normal. Hayes shuts down the engines. The props spin down to a halt. The silence rushes back in. Hayes climbs out of the cockpit. His flight suit is soaked dark with sweat. His hands are shaking. He slides off the wing and walks straight to McKenna. The other mechanics are watching. The ground crew is watching. Hayes grabs McKenna's shoulder. He leans in close. "It worked," Hayes says. What neither of them realizes is that they weren't the only ones watching. Captain Frank Mitchell, a flight leader in the 475th Fighter Group, had seen the entire fight from 15,000 feet. He had been watching Hayes' element engage the Zeros below, and he had noticed something impossible. Hayes's P-38 was rolling faster than any Lightning Mitchell had ever seen. It snapped through maneuvers like it weighed half what it should. Mitchell knew every pilot in the theater. He knew Hayes. Hayes was good, but he wasn't that good. Something was different about his airplane. After landing, Mitchell finds Hayes in the debriefing room. Hayes is still high on adrenaline, filling out the combat report. 3 confirmed kills. Mitchell asks him what was different. Hayes hesitates. He says he doesn't know. His airplane just responded better today. Mitchell presses him. Did maintenance do anything to the aircraft? Hayes looks at him. You should talk to Technical Sergeant McKenna. Mitchell finds McKenna 2 hours later. McKenna is deep in an engine cowling on a different P-38. His hands are black with grease. Mitchell asks him directly, "What did you do to Hayes's airplane?" McKenna looks at the officer. He pauses. This is it. This is the moment he gets court-martialed. He tells him, "The piano wire, the slack, the unauthorized modification." Mitchell listens. He doesn't interrupt. When McKenna finishes, Mitchell asks one question. "Can you do it to mine?" McKenna warns him. It's not approved. It's dangerous. If it fails, they both go down. One in flames, the other in handcuffs. Mitchell says, "I've lost 4 pilots this month. If there's something that can help them survive, I want it. Regulations can wait." That evening, McKenna modifies Mitchell's P-38. The next morning, Mitchell flies it. He comes back raving. "It rolls like a fighter instead of a truck," he tells his wingman. By August 20th, McKenna has modified 9 aircraft. The word spreads like a contagion through the squadron. Pilots start asking their crew chiefs. Crew chiefs start coming to McKenna. He shows them. Cut the wire. Bend the Z. Install the tensioner. 8 minutes. It spreads from pilot to pilot, mechanic to mechanic. No official documentation, no engineering approval, just whispered conversations in the ready room and the maintenance hangars. Hayes shoots down 2 more zeros on August 22nd. Mitchell gets 3 on August 25th. The kill ratio starts shifting. In July, for every 0 destroyed, 2 P-38s were lost. In August, it drops to 1.3 to 1. By September, it is nearly even. And then, the Japanese notice. Lieutenant Commander Saburo Sakai is one of Japan's top aces. 64 confirmed kills. A legend. He has been fighting Americans since Pearl Harbor. He knows the P-38. He knows it is fast, but clumsy. On September 3, 1943, Sakai engages a P-38 over Wewak. He uses his standard tactic. He draws the American into a turning fight. He waits for the P-38 to begin its slow, sluggish roll. Then he snaps his turn back the opposite direction to cut inside. Except the P-38 reverses with him. Instantly. Sakai has executed this maneuver dozens of times. He knows the timing perfectly. But this P-38 rolls faster than it should. Sakai barely avoids a head-on collision. The American gets guns on him. Sakai has to dive away, shaking, confused. He returns to base and files a report. The Americans have a new aircraft, he writes, or maybe a new tactic. He doesn't know. Japanese intelligence examines the wreckage of downed P-38s. They find nothing. The engines are the same. The guns are the same. The airframe is the same. They don't see the tiny piece of piano wire hidden inside the boom. It looks like part of the cable. You can't develop tactics against a modification you don't know exists. The Japanese pilots become hesitant. Their confidence breaks. The 0 goes from hunter to hunted. By the end of September, the 11th Air Fleet has lost 38 fighters to P-38s. American losses are 22. The ratio has reversed. For the first time in the Pacific War, P-38s are killing Zeros at a better than 1-to-1 rate. The modification never became official during the war. The Army Air Force Engineering Command finally learned about it in October 1943. A maintenance inspector at Doadura noticed inconsistent cable tension readings. He traced the discrepancies to the piano wire tensioners. He wrote a report. It went up the chain of command. It sat on desks for 3 weeks while officers debated what to do. The modification violated regulations. It was illegal. but it was working. In November, Lockheed sent an engineering team to New Guinea. They tested the wire. They measured the tension. They ran flight tests. Their conclusion? It was safe. It was effective. It should have been there all along. Lockheed integrated a similar tensioning system into the P-38J model that entered production in December 1943. But they called it an engineering improvement. They didn't call it the McKenna fix. McKenna never received official credit. No commendation, no medal, no mention in any report. Hayes survived the war. He flew 63 combat missions, 11 kills. He went home to Iowa in 1945, married his sweetheart, had 4 kids, and worked as a crop duster. He never forgot. Every year on August 17th, he called McKenna, just to say thank you. Mitchell survived too. He retired as a colonel in 1963. He told the story to every young maintenance officer he supervised. He made sure they understood that sometimes the best solutions come from the guys with grease under their fingernails, not the ones with degrees on their walls. McKenna stayed in the Army Air Force until 1946. He went back to California. He opened a garage in Long Beach. He worked on engines for 42 years. He never talked much about the war. When people asked, he'd say he was a mechanic. Fixed airplanes, he'd say. That's all. In 1991, a military historian found references to the piano wire in old maintenance logs. He tracked McKenna down. McKenna was 73 then. The historian asked him about it. McKenna shrugged. He said it wasn't anything special, just something that needed doing. The historian estimated that the modification may have saved between 80 and 100 American pilots' lives. McKenna said he never counted. He just remembered the ones who came back. Hayes, Mitchell, Watkins. James McKenna died in 2006 at age 88. His obituary mentioned his service. It didn't mention the wire. But his garage in Long Beach is still there. Different owner now. But on the wall in the back office, there's a faded photograph. A young mechanic in coveralls, standing next to a P-38 Lightning. The date written on the back is August 1943, New Guinea. That is how innovation actually happens in war. Not through official channels, not through committees, but through sergeants and mechanics who see a problem, find a solution, and don't wait for permission to save lives.